Today on Hearts of Heroes, a flash flood sends rocks, trees, and debris barreling down a North Carolina river.
Debris started going down the river, and I realized that, boy, something bad was going to be happening here.
Wiping out bridges, homes, and almost everything in its path.
I turned unaware that there was a wall of water coming at me.
Plus, a tornado rips through a small suburb in central Alabama, leaving a man trapped under his demolished home.
And then get to the house, and it almost looks collapsed in on itself.
The task at hand for these first responders, do everything to save lives. We're all naturally curious. So when extreme weather hits, it can be tempting to go outside and capture it on camera.
But that is just never a good idea, as one couple found out when they were caught in a serious flash flood.
Located in the western tip of North Carolina, in the shadow of the Blue Ridge Mountains, sits the rural town of Crusoe.
It's a small town, probably not more than 600-700 people. It's rather isolated. There's no stores. Probably the center of anything here is the community center.
For a retired couple like Maureen Murphy and her husband Thomas Goodfellow, it was the perfect place to retire. But Thomas and Maureen's serene life next to the winding Pigeon River was turned upside down when Tropical Storm Fred made landfall in the southeast in 2021.
Tropical Storm Fred was the worst natural disaster that Crusoe communities had since the fire department was established.
We had a drop of 6.5 inches right here, and it rained continuously. And so we knew the river would rise. There was no question about that.
Unaware of the danger heading her way, Maureen made the fateful decision to go outside and capture the storm on camera.
I went out to get pictures, as I'm wont to do, and saw the river going over the top of the bridge, saying, hey, that's a great shot. And so I went out, took pictures, watching the river rise, unaware, and never got the alert that there was a flash flood.
Power went out, and it just did not come back on. Probably within an hour, the river started rising really rapidly, and then more and more debris started going down the river, and I realized that, boy, something bad was going to be happening here.
Thomas nor Maureen realized that as the floodwater was rushing down the Pigeon River, it was gathering power and also debris as it went. Logs, rocks, and other large items accumulated, building a temporary dam. The water pressure behind that dam grew.
The level of debris that would accumulate from upstream that then broke through one log jam, wipe out a bridge, come down, new log jam, break out another bridge, and each time that water became increasingly more devastating.
Then the wall of floodwater and debris careened down the river, sweeping up everything in its path and headed straight for Maureen and Thomas's home.
And I turned just at the corner of the garage to take one more look, unaware that there was a wall of water coming at me.
It was almost like an explosion hit, and before I knew it, the water was thigh high, and I was trying to get the doors open to get the water out of the house.
Coming up, Maureen finds herself at the mercy of Mother Nature.
I'm suddenly feet downstream, heading quite quickly past a point of no return.
And later, a devastating tornado forces doctors, nurses, and first responders to attempt a life-altering medical procedure.
You could feel the whole house shift to the left, and so everybody started screaming, no!
But first, a tip to keep you safe.
Flash floods can be one of the most deceiving and dangerous natural disasters.
That's why it's important to never enter rushing water during a storm. It only takes a few inches of moving water to knock you off your feet and move your vehicle away.
Taking the long way around or turning back is always the safest route when dealing with floodwaters. Turn around, don't drown.
In August of 2021, Tropical Storm Fred dropped heavy rain in southern Appalachia. The small community of Crusoe, North Carolina, was in the crosshairs. Heavy rain turned the Pigeon River into a roaring deluge, sending floodwater and tons of refuse barreling through the community.
There was all kinds of debris. I mean, we were having hot water heaters, cars, everything going down the river.
Thomas Goodfellow's wife, Maureen, was outside snapping pictures of the storm when she was hit by a tidal wave of floodwater.
I'm suddenly feet downstream, heading quite quickly past a point of no return.
Miraculously, Maureen managed to grab onto a branch of a fir tree.
And I just prayed, dear God, when I grabbed that little limb, don't break.
Thomas saw the power of the flood when a log came smashing through the wall of their home like a battering ram.
And all of a sudden, it was almost like an explosion hit. Same type of loud noise, boom, adrenaline going through you, and thinking, what in the heck do I do here?
In a matter of moments, the house was filled with 3 feet of water, and it was rising quickly.
The pressure from the water was so great that it was just like a fire hydrant flooding the house. And it hit me that unless I got some doors open, that this could be really major, maybe up to the ceiling.
Thomas rushed to open a sliding glass door, which released rising water from their home, then went to check on his wife.
She was not doing well. She was tying herself to the tree. The man across the street was concerned. I was concerned.
But the water was just too powerful for either man to go out and rescue her.
I was really going back and forth in my mind. What happens if she breaks free from the tree? What do I do?
The neighbor tried calling 911, but it was no use. The fire station and surrounding roads were also flooded.
We had a rock slide down the road that had the road blocked. The river was probably 5 or 6 feet deep in the road and made it impassable.
There was nothing they could do to help those on the other side of the flooded roads.
Very helpless feeling. And we were receiving calls of people needing help, but we were stuck ourselves. We couldn't even get out.
Thomas and Maureen had no choice. They had to wait out the flood.
I got up to that tree, and with my toes to the bottom, I just leaned in, chin in, and the water was coming around just about hip high.
Finally, after hours of clinging to the tree, the water began to recede.
When the water finally got down to my ankles, that's when I decided, well, I better maybe see if I can get around it, and headed back towards the house.
It was then that Maureen saw the extent of the damage to their home.
There was absolutely nothing in its original place, nothing. That water just uplifted and just pushed stuff willy-nilly.
Her beautiful family heirlooms soaked and battered.
I saw that log jammed up against the door jamb and saw the condition of the guest bedroom. I'm still emotional about it because that was my grandmother's furniture. And a furniture set that you can't get it anymore.
Maureen and Thomas called our sponsor, Belfour Property Restoration, in hopes that they could not only restore their home, but save these priceless keepsakes. Within 24 hours, Gregory Taylor was there to help.
There was mud everywhere. The displaced furniture in the house was also a big challenge. They own quite a few antiques, and trying to get those out and make sure that they could be restored as best as possible was a priority, as well as getting the tree out of the house. We were able to salvage quite a lot. We were able to pack everything, all of their belongings that had been damaged or needed to be cleaned. They got the furniture out.
They took 3 1860s photo albums and a number of antique quilts, a couple of that are priceless. So they took those, and those are being restored.
Recently, Sheldon Yellen and Gregory Taylor from our sponsor Belfour Property Restoration had a chance to reunite with Thomas and Maureen.
We've talked briefly before about the community. So many people were affected, but yet there was still a unified community effort.
They were just fantastic. I mean, people you didn't even know would knock on the door and say, is there anything we can do or help you with or anything like that? Not even know the people that dropped off water, food, just incredible.
It revived my faith in mankind. The outpouring of help, love, it was one neighbor helping another without regard to how bad their situation was. They wanted to make sure everybody else was okay too.
And now I want to ask you, what would you like to say to this young man?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
From one military man to another, it's very meaningful.
I call Greg my hero for many, many reasons. For many things done here that were way beyond contractual.
It has been a great day, and I got to meet some real American heroes today. Neighbors were affected as well, but they still dug deep, found it within themselves to go help their neighbors. It's an amazing story of resilience.
Coming up, a tornado leaves first responders facing a life-altering decision.
At that point, we realized we didn't have an option anymore.
Strong tornadoes can cause inconceivable damage, destroying homes, buildings, and almost anything in their path. Fortunately, after they strike, help is always on the way.
And for one Alabama family, it would take a virtual army of nurses, doctors, and firefighters to pull a father of 3 out from under the crushing debris.
Just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, you'll find the small suburb of Fultondale. Population, just under 10,000.
It's a growing city, but it still has that small town feel. You kind of know everybody. You grew up with everybody around here.
And that sense of community is what brought Eloisa Concepcion and her husband Arnaldo to move to Fultondale 13 years ago.
Ven alguna familia necesitada o así, y pues todos ahí, ¿qué es lo que necesita? ¿Te podemos ayudar en algo?
We're called the Friendly City. We like to show that through our service to the city.
While you can always count on a friendly wave from a neighbor, you can also count on severe storms in the southeast. Alabama can get a tornado any month of the year.
We've had them in December, we've had them in January, even had them in the fall. The weather here is so random that anytime's tornado season to me.
And on the evening of January 25th, 2020, the atmospheric ingredients came together to create a violent tornado.
Sí estaba lluvioso, pero no se escuchaban así que iba a venir un tornado feo.
Arnaldo went outside and saw the storm. It was headed directly for them. He and Eloisa quickly got their 3 kids and tried to get down to the basement.
Recuerdo yo que esa noche sí sonaron las alarmas, pero en el momento que estaban sonando las alarmas ya el tornado lo teníamos encima. O sea, fue segundos, no fueron minutos, fueron segundos.
Eloisa tried to open the basement door, but there was a safety chain.
Entonces yo me tardé en abrir porque es una cadena que uno le tiene que hacerle muy despacio para poder atinarle, pero ya con los nervios y todo, ahí fue donde yo me tardé. Y ahí fue donde
Eloisa was finally able to unchain the door, but Arnaldo and his 6-year-old daughter were still in the hallway.
Fue cuando la tumbó la puerta y así fue como ellas salieron, pero yo ya no pude salir con mi niña.
Suddenly, the whole house crashed down on them.
Ya en ese momento sentí cuando, que nos cayó como el techo, no sé.
Once the tornado passed, Eloisa made her way out of the basement to find her home virtually destroyed. Her 6-year-old daughter was safe, but her husband, Arnaldo, was trapped face down on the stairway under heavy debris.
Pero ya cuando tratábamos de sacábamos escombros, no salían, entonces yo, en mi cabeza yo decía, bueno, ¿qué puede ser algo tan duro que no lo puede dejar?
The twister had uprooted a massive tree, sending it crashing down onto their home. Arnaldo's legs were pinned under its weight.
Entonces fue cuando yo medio volteé así, ya vi que estaba el árbol acá sobre mi espalda.
When firefighter and medic Brandon Sharp and Brandon Fuller arrived, they knew that this was going to be a rescue that they had never seen before.
And I finally made it to him, and he was kind of laid face first right at the top of his stairs to the basement, and the tree was on top of his left leg.
And I just looked at the tree and just kind of pondered at the tree, like, what are we going to do with that?
We were trying to dig a hole around his leg just to see if we couldn't push his leg in and out, but nothing we did at that point was working.
So at that point, we realized we didn't have an option.
Coming up, the rescue calls for a gutsy medical procedure performed in the most dangerous of situations.
I thought they were joking. I mean, that's Hollywood stuff.
But first, this safety tip.
Tornadoes travel fast. If a warning is issued for your neighborhood, seek shelter immediately.
If you can, get to the basement or the lowest level of your building. Stay away from windows and have as many walls between yourself and the outside as possible.
Remember that staying alert and prepared can save you and your loved ones during a natural disaster.
In January of 2020, a tornado sent an enormous tree crashing into a home in suburban Alabama, trapping Arnold Vasquez under its massive weight. First responders valiantly tried everything they could to get Arnaldo out from under the tree. But they were in a race against time in two ways. Arnaldo needed immediate medical attention. Plus, there was no telling how much longer the house was going to stay standing.
The main concern I was worried about was any other secondary collapses that could ultimately hurt Mr. Vasquez even more.
So they got in touch with the staff of the University of Alabama Birmingham Medical Center for backup.
We picked up the phone, talked to him, and was like, what are you guys needing? They were needing nurses and blood.
Nurse India Alford, along with fellow nurse Sherikia Hardy, jumped in an ambulance and raced to Arnaldo. Once they got to Arnaldo, the nurses saw how desperate the situation was.
We assessed the patient, came back down, talked to the firemen and said, what are our options? That's when we kind of decided at that point there was really just no pulling him out, there was no trying to lift.
So they reached out to Dr. Blake Gibson at the University Trauma Center.
After multiple phone calls, it became clear that they had exhausted all of their resources and that we were really gonna have to consider an in-field amputation.
I thought they were joking. I mean, that's Hollywood stuff. That don't happen in the field. As far as I know, that's the first recorded one in the Southeast.
But they really had no other choice. Dr. Gibson and trauma surgeon Dr. Don Reef headed to the scene.
Actually, I drove myself out there to Fultondale, but arranged out the instruments and some of the stuff we were going to need to perform the procedure at the scene by the time I got there.
With no time to lose, Dr. Reef started the amputation.
I placed 2 fresh tourniquets, made them as tight and as secure and as high as I could, and then we basically began the surgical procedure at that point at the lowest level to preserve the most limb that we could of his leg that was exposed.
Everybody pitched in, including the Fultondale medics. They all helped Dr. Reef.
Throughout the operation, I was helping Dr. Reef with medical tools they needed when they were running out of my bag, just assisting the best I could from that point.
He needed a light, and we couldn't get a flashlight to where he was, so I had to climb on top of the tree above Dr. Reef so he could perform the operation with just a flashlight on my phone.
But during the procedure, the home was becoming increasingly more unstable.
Somebody actually went up on the second floor with a chainsaw and they were gonna try to cut some pieces of the tree, and you could literally feel the whole house shift to the left. And so everybody started screaming, no! And so they stopped with the chainsaw.
Once the operation started, it really only took a matter of minutes, thanks to the incredible teamwork of everybody on hand.
It was seamless. I think that it was a bunch of really great professionals who all know their job very well and who are comfortable working in stressful situations and who put the mission before everything else.
After the team freed Arnaldo, they raced him to the hospital trauma center, where Dr. Reef completed the procedure.
We took him to the operating room and washed out the amputation site, and then approximately 48 hours later, I want to say we went on to revise and enclose his amputation site.
This whole thing was not easy for anybody involved in the incredible rescue. But months later, with the support of his family, Arnaldo has made a full recovery, and he's now fitted with an artificial leg. Recently, Arnaldo and his family were able to meet the heroic team that saved this father's life.
It was great to see you. It's great to see you and your family together. I'm proud for you and happy for you, and you're getting around great.
Not often that we get to see the outcome after we get involved with any patients, but I'm glad they sent a great team of doctors down there with us, and I'm glad you're doing awesome. I really am. I'm happy for you and your family.
Y gracias a los doctores. Gracias, de verdad que gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias a ellos. Ahora puedo decir que mis hijos tienen papá.
Now, none of us wake up and say, you know what I'd love to do today? Get myself into some sort of situation that requires a rescue.
But if we are, it's reassuring to know there are incredible people out there who will always put their own lives on the line.
Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.